Hey guys, my name is Emil Woroff, and today I'll be ranking all the Overwatch 2 heroes, but not by their current strength in the game, but by how well they are designed as characters. That means I'll be considering how fun they are to play, how fair they feel to play against, and how well they play with the team and interact with the enemies, meaning how much they add to the game as in interesting interactions, as well as how unique they are and how well-rounded their whole kit feels. I'll be going through all the heroes in the order they are in the hero select screen, meaning I'll start with the tanks. I think D.Va is actually a pretty well-designed character. Her Matrix is a cool ability and a pretty unique shield in a way that you can peel with it really well for your backline, but you can also use it as a great offensive mechanic. I think D.Va is pretty cool because she can play so offensively and defensively at the same time, and I don't think she is unfair to play against in any way. D.Va's only not too well designed thing is her ultimate. I think it's a little weird since you pretty much have to choose between getting fully healed and using it as a damage tool, which I think is not too great, but I can actually see the appeal, and the whole thing of her piloting a mech is really unique and a cool mechanic, especially that you can just get it back. So I think D.Va is solid A tier. The next tank is Doomfist. I think Doomfist works actually better as a tank than as a DPS, but there's still some flaws. It's pretty annoying to get punched around by him, and at the same time it feels really annoying to get stunned or slapped or CC'd in any way playing as Doomfist. I think that's still a little problematic, especially Ball, who plays similar to him, has just the ability to get a lot of shields at one point, which Doomfist doesn't really. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun to play Doomfist, but I still think there are some flaws, especially his ultimate. I think it's similar to D.Va's ultimate, but even worse, since you can either just use it to do damage, but people will probably just dodge, or you can use it to retreat, which is pretty underwhelming and not very epic for an ultimate. So I think it's a lot of fun to play him, but he's still just B tier. There are a lot of flaws. Similar thing with Junker Queen. I think she has some cool abilities, like the knife is pretty cool, and her ultimate is really interesting, and it's great that you can now give anti-heal with something else than Anna's Bionade. But at the same time, I think she encourages a pretty boring playstyle, since all she really does is just press shift and then run into the battle and brawl it out on the point. Felt like she doesn't have any shield like Reinhardt has in a coordinated brawl. She just pretty much does damage, and her team does damage around her after they get speed boosted and additional health. So I think her kit on its own is actually pretty interesting, but the playstyle she encourages is a little dumb. So she deserves speed here too. The Neo Orisa, I mean, I probably have a harder time ranking her since she wasn't so much in the focus like Junker Queen, and she's pretty new too. But I think she's solid game design too. You can hold the ground with her pretty well and at the same time operate in a longer range with her primary fire and the javelin. I think her primary fire with the cooldown instead of reload mechanic is pretty cool and unique. I like that, and yeah, her ultimate still feels pretty underwhelming. I mean, that might just be a balancing thing, but it's sure, most of the time you just feel like it does nothing. So, especially compared to something like Graph, it just feels very unimpactful. But yeah, I think Orisa is solid design. There's not too much standing out there as being super awesome or interesting, but she's not especially flawed. So I think she deserves speed here too. I really like Reinhardt. The Reinhardt battles are one of the best things in Overwatch, in my opinion. I just love the whole interplay between the shatter and the shield, the charge. Especially you can now cancel the charge, which is so nice to play Reinhardt. Makes it so much more comfortable. So yeah, I think Reinhardt is an awesome hero. Just making a hero who has a giant hammer work in a shooter is really cool. I really love Reinhardt, and I think in Overwatch 1 he would be S tier, but in Overwatch 2, especially if you're on lower ranks, you often have a hard time actually doing something because you just instantly die if your supports aren't healing you well and you don't have an off tank to protect you. So often you just find yourself holding up the shield if your supports aren't good. So I think Reinhardt is good in the point that he does have a lot of interaction with his team, but it's almost too much because your hitbox is huge, your animations are slow, so you just die very quickly if you don't get healed. And I think heroes like Doomfist or D.Va can just survive with much less healing than Reinhardt. But yeah, he's a great character, so 80. Not a great character is Roadhog. I think he suffers not the problem that Reinhardt has. In fact, he's not really dependent on his supports very much. He can heal himself, he doesn't provide a shield, or he can't really peel for any of his team. I mean, he does have the hook, which is like a one-shot ability if you hook and headshot something, which is really dumb on a tank, especially since it's like Reinhardt's charge is one-shot too technically, but it's way more predictable, and it forces you into the enemies, while Roadhog can just stand where he is and hook. I think he's just a really, really badly designed character. His ultimate isn't anything interesting too. Sorry, but DT. Sigma, on the other hand, is pretty cool again. His shield and his kinetic grasp are a cool interplay between two defensive abilities. I really like his orbs. They are, I think, one of the most interesting primary fires in the game. His ultimate is solid. I quite like Sigma, but I don't think he's too special either. It's pretty similar to Risa in a way. He has a job and he does it pretty well, but he doesn't add like anything too interesting to the game. So I think he's good B tier, but doesn't quite hit A tier. Winston is like a huge classic of Overwatch, and I think there are a lot of things to like. His two abilities are pretty simple, but are in combination very interesting, which I think is good, the game design. And his ultimate is actually pretty cool too, by disabling one of his abilities and like doubling down on his health and the other ability. But I think the fact that he just feeds so much ult charge with his ultimate to the enemies is not too well designed. I don't really love that. And I mean, he's hard to play. He's doing pretty badly in lobbies with newer players. And his primary fire is a little whack too, since it doesn't like do anything against other tanks, which, especially in Overwatch 2, where you only have one tank on each team, the tank battle is like something that actually makes the game pretty interesting. And I think there are heroes like Reinhardt, or even like to a certain extent D.Va or Sigma, where the tank battle is actually really interesting. And I don't think that's the case with Winston. I mean, he's not supposed to fight other tanks, but it's still something I don't like that much about him. So yeah, if you make a tier list for like who's interesting to watch in a pro setting or for really good players, then Winston would be very far up there. But I think especially for newer players, he's pretty weird to play and to play against and to play with actually. So I'll put him into B tier. Wrecking Ball is such an awesomely designed character. This whole idea of just having a character who can roll into a ball and bounce people with his hitbox around is so awesome and so cool. I love it. The shields make it actually work. His abilities are really cool. I love Ball. He's so well designed. I won't put him into S tier because he's very, very hard to play, and I think he's actually very hard to play with too. Like, if you play him on a lower skill level, then either you suck as Ball and you just feed, or even if Ball is good but your team is very low level or doesn't have good coordination, then even if the Ball player is good, his team won't just be able to follow up on what he does and keep up with his very unique playstyle. I think this keeps him from S tier, but the ideas in Ball are so cool. I just love the whole design at the end. Blizzard really made it work well. Our last tank, Zarya, I think she's S tier. She's such a well-designed character. The bubbles are awesome. You can use them to engage. You can use them to peel. I mean, the fact that you can now use both bubbles on either yourself or a teammate is awesome. And like the whole character idea of charging the bubbles to get more damage is it's like optimal tank design. You tank and that allows you to do more if you use the bubbles well for you or your team. The ultimate is interesting and can be used as a cool interaction by your team. At the same time, you're not super dependent on your heals since you can protect yourself with the bubbles. Zarya is just such a perfectly designed tank. I love how she plays, and there's not really anything not to like about how Zarya is designed. The fact that she can use her secondary fire to jump boost, like there's so much cool stuff about Zarya. And at the same time, it's really simplistic. She pretty much only has one ability. You can use it on yourself or a mate, but you just have one ability and that makes the whole character work so well. Zarya is so well designed, definitely S tier. I actually think Ashe is a really well designed DPS. Her abilities are both like multiple use. You can use the shift ability to get up to high ground or to defend yourself from enemies by booping them back. I think that's cool. And the dynamite is also like an interaction with your shots by shooting them, but it also goes off by itself. I think the reload mechanic is annoying, but actually quite interesting and unique. So yeah, I think Ashe is a really well-designed character. She's not offering like too much unique game difference to the game to make it to S tier, because after all, she's still like a hit scan pretty much, but she's a really well designed hit scan, so I'll put her into a solid A tier. Cassidy, on the other hand, pretty much does all the things Ash does right wrong. His whole kit feels like it's all over the place. Like, the grenade is just kind of weird. I mean, I know they had to replace the flashbang because they wanted to remove CC, but the grenade just feels weird. And like, the roll is cool, but not too huge of an ability. And the shots, like, it's hit scan, but it's such a weird range. I don't know. The ultimate is pretty boring too and doesn't get a lot of value on higher levels. So yeah, like, it's not D tier because there's like, it's not Cassidy's not too annoying to play against, but he's honestly pretty boring and all over the place. So I think he landed on C tier. Echo, I think her ultimate is insanely cool, like one of the coolest in the game. It's such a great mechanic, and now with the 300 health max for dupes, it doesn't even feel too overpowered anymore. But yeah, I mean, the rest of her abilities, it's a cool kit, but she's annoying to play against. And it's not quite as elegant as like Pharah's whole flying thing is. But yeah, especially the ultimate, it's pretty cool. So B tier a bit. Yeah, she's annoying to play against. So that keeps her from A tier. Genji, on the other hand, is just such a well-designed DPS, clear S tier. The dash is awesome, the resets are just such a cool mechanic. He works so well together with the new DPS passive. His blade is like one of the most iconic ultimates, and it's awesome because you can get value with Genji and the blade, especially if you're like a lower tier player, but it just gets so epic and game dominating on higher tiers. The combinations like with Nano Blade are so cool. The whole character is just so well designed. The E is a nice protective tool. I mean, yeah, you can get completely destroyed by their Genji, but it doesn't feel unfair, like, for example, with Sombra, because Genji still takes a lot of skill. You need a good game sense to play him, you need good mechanics. But at the same time, unlike Tracer, for example, you can play Genji with lower skill levels and just shoot a little bit more on longer range and use the fact that you won't get punished by the DPS because Genji still isn't too squishy. Yeah, I think he's just a really, really well-designed DPS. Hanzo is like a cool character by itself, and it's interesting, and I love seeing people pop off on Hanzo, or be lucky and pop off on Hanzo myself, but he's such a nightmare to play against. It's so annoying to get killed by those arrows. The storm arrows are like the worst ability. I mean, heck is the worst ability in the game, but the storm arrows are a close second. And if I play against Hanzo, there's always a little bit of randomness involved with those arrows, and they aren't hit scan. It's cool to like see people pop off on Hanzo and pop off on Hanzo yourself, but it's so obnoxious to play against him. I mean, the storm arrows were addition because Scatter Arrow was even worse, but they're not such great game design. I mean, his whole thing is that you have to wait and to use the bow every time. The storm arrows even ruined this main base mechanic of him, so he's not like Roadhog level worse because it's actually kind of cool to be good with him, and it feels rewarding, but I think C tier is like his place. Unlike Bastion, who is just a complete piece of trash, he belongs in D tier. What even is this hero? He wasn't like a well-designed hero in Overwatch 1, but Overwatch 2 made it so much worse. They just took Overwatch 1 Bastion, thought like the not moving was annoying, so they made him move, and then they realized, okay, it's a little overpowered, so let's just put the whole hero on 8-second cooldown, which is insanely dumb. You can just do so little without a cooldown. His hitbox is ginormous. Most tanks have a smaller hitbox than Bastion in his walking form. The grenade is an insanely uninspiring ability, like they just added the first ability that anybody came up with. It's just such a badly designed hero. And speaking of badly designed heroes, Junkrat comes next, and he's maybe even worse. Junkrat is a little bit more fun to play, but the whole idea behind Junkrat was making a character that feels like unfair and annoying to play against, and that's exactly what it feels like. I mean, he's pretty useless in higher ranked lobbies, which is even worse game design, but for lower ranked lobbies, he's just insanely annoying. Imagine being new to the game and wanting to play the game and trying to realize all the fast and colorful things and everything going on or watch, and then you just walk into a trap on the floor, which was like the last thing you want to watch out for, and instantly die because you can't move. The trap is insanely annoying. The ultimate is insanely annoying for lower level players. Like, it's such a badly designed character. He's an insane pain to play against. And at the same time, he has a pretty low skill ceiling and isn't even like good on higher level play, which isn't good game design either. Like, I really hate Jankrit. May's a little better. Like, she's still annoying to play against, getting walled off and everything. But at least she has like a few interesting things going on for her, and like the Mei against Mei play is pretty cool. And while it is annoying to get walled off, you can see some big walls, which is cool to watch. I think she got a few things going on for her, but she's still very annoying. Like the ice block too, she can stay on points and be very obnoxious because you just don't get her off.
Phrasing.
With her 2 abilities, which is annoying. I don't like her, but I don't think she's as bad as those guys in the D tier. Her, on the other hand, is awesome. The whole thing making it work with the chat pack of the rockets. You can use the E and the rockets for flying interactions, or like obviously for doing damage or booping enemies. Love her design. She definitely landed into S tier if her ultimate wasn't as terrible. The only good thing about this ultimate is that it has a really good interaction with Mercy's revive ability, and you already have a pocket Mercy very often with Pharah. But yeah, Pharah's an awesomely designed hero with a pretty badly designed ultimate, which keeps her from S tier, but she's still really well designed. There's actually a lot to like about Reaper too. I put him into A tier because I don't feel he's complex like the heroes in S tier, but they made a hero with like a basic shotgun work really well. The teleportation is cool, the shift is slightly annoying, which is another thing that keeps him from S tier, but it's cool. And I especially love about Reaper that you can play him like in a way that you attack the enemies and sneak into the backlines and try to kill everybody there, but you can also use him like as a counter dive hero to just melt the enemy ball or Winston or whatever jumps into your team as like a defensive hero. I think that's really cool about Reaper. Sojourn is another well-designed DPS in my opinion. The whole charging your rail and then firing it off, like the E is cool too. I like the slide. Like Sojourn is actually really cool. Her ultimate is, you could say it's a little boring, but I actually think it's cool because it uses the rail mechanic in an even cooler way. The only thing that's really annoying about her is that as an enemy, you like never know if she's just pretty much a soldier type character or if she can one-shot you at every time. I think it would be cool if the game communicated this to you a little bit more. So I think that's a little annoying to play against, but she's really well designed and she deserves a spot on A tier. Soldier, on the other hand, I mean, it's a little controversial in my opinion on him, since you can't just argue he's like a cool basic character, but I actually don't like his design. None of his abilities is like too interesting. His healing makes him very independent from his team, which you could argue for is like interesting, but I think it works well with Sombra or Tracer, who can have the abilities that like make them heal and do something else, while Soldier just has healing, which feels a little off in the DPS. I mean, I know he's supposed to be a well-balanced character, but I don't think he actually adds like anything interesting to the games. And I like him because, in a way, since he's a good character for people who played other shooters to get into Overwatch, but I don't think he's a well-designed character in Overwatch itself, so he'll land in C tier. It's not as worse as D tier characters. Then we get Sombra, and Sombra is such an interesting character because she adds so much to the game by herself. Like, you feel like you're playing a completely different game just when Sombra is in. She has like translocator mind games. She has this awesome like Spider-Man meme like moment when 2 Sombras walk into each other while they're both invisible. You're forced to spy check. You can dive very well with the Hexa adapts. You can use EMP. Like, there's so much interesting stuff about Sombra, which is really cool design. The problem is that someone has to play against all of this. So this keeps her from being an S tier character to, I think in most people's opinion, in D tier, and she's by far the worst character to play against. But I give her C tier, since playing her is actually a lot of fun, unlike those D tier characters. And I think like seeing high-level Sombra or playing high-level Sombra is actually really interesting. That adds a lot to the game. I mean, a lot of what she adds is shitty, but there's also some cool stuff. And if you try to like Sombra, there's actually a lot to like. There's even way more to hate. So I think C tier is appropriate. Symmetra is a weird one. She feels very uninspiring, and her turrets are just either in high level useless or on low level insanely annoying. But I think her teleporter kind of carries her. I put her into B tier since I think she's a lot of fun if you just like screw around with friends and like try to use diva bombs and teleporters, and she would be a better character if the teleporter disappeared after some time, so you don't just always use it to get faster out of spawn. If you actually use the teleporter for like fancy stuff like with diva bombs or just for interesting rotations, I think Symmetra becomes a very cool character. But if you don't do those things, she's just very boring. So I think B tier is like a good place for her to be. A lot of what I said about Symmetra is true about Torbjorn too, in a way, since he's also a pretty defensive character with like a turret. The sad thing about Torbjorn is that he does not really get carried by a teleporter, so I mean he's not like the worst to play against, and you can have some fun playing him, but I wouldn't say he's a well-designed character. I don't think anything about him is really cool and unique, except the fact that he has like the small hammer to kill people with, which is awesome. But apart from that, he doesn't have too much cool stuff going on for him, so we'll put him into C tier. Tracer, on the other hand, has a lot of cool stuff going on for her. She's awesome, like she's really well designed, similar to Genji. It's really elegant, you can do a lot of stuff with her. She isn't quite S tier since she does have a really high skill floor. So for big parts of the player base, she's just too hard to play and therefore useless. I think this keeps her from S tier, like in a similar way like Ball. She's really, really well designed, but too hard to play for a lot of players, and that just can't be S tier. Widowmaker is actually really well designed. Blizzard did a great job with her, making a one-shot character work in Overwatch. Her abilities are both not the greatest or most impactful, but they supplement her kit really well, and she has a great playstyle. I think at the same time, she can be very oppressive. You have to play insanely cautious, and a big concern of mine with Widowmaker is that she's just such a good character to smurf on. If you ever played like against a smurf Widowmaker, it's insanely annoying and oppressive. That's some stuff not to like about her. You could probably argue for her to be A tier, but I think like she's high B tier. And on the other hand is absolute S tier. She's so well designed. Her heals are awesome, like the elegance of just healing and shooting with the same gun, with the same damage or healing impact. It's just awesome. Her abilities are two of the most interesting abilities in the game. Like, she can defend herself well, but she actually needs skill to hit those sleep darts. The nade is usable in like an offensive and a defensive way. Nano's an awesome ultimate, like engages its teamwork, and it has some awesome combinations, like with Genji Blade obviously, but also the time it was used with Reaper's Death Blossom. And it's so well designed, there's nothing not to laugh about her. Baptiste, on the other hand, like, there's some stuff to dislike. I think Immortality Field is interesting, and I kinda like it, but I can understand that a lot of people hate it. And just the ridiculous amounts of healing he puts out in Overwatch 2, especially with the shift that, like, instant restores so much health for you and your team, it can feel very annoying to play against him. And this combined with his high damage output, I mean, it's kind of fun to play, but it's, like, not too much utility, but just a huge amount of healing and a lot of damage, which is like not bad design, but not great either. I think BT is like a spot. Similar spot for Brick. Her double boop is really cool to knock people back. Like, I like that about her. And like, her base mechanic of healing people around her by Inspire is cool, especially combined with like those armor packs for healing, because just the Inspire healing would, especially on lower levels, be probably a little too harsh to keep up. There's nothing too special about Brick. Like, she doesn't have any cool utility abilities, and her kit is like not too well rounded. But yeah, she's pretty well designed. I think BT is a spot too. About Kiriko, like, she's pretty new, so my feelings might definitely change about her. But at the moment, I think she's awesome for high-level players, but her skill ceiling seems to be like insanely high, but her skill floor is like really high too. There's a lot to do, the abilities are complicated, and I mean, Kitsune Rush might be one of the coolest ultimates in the game. I love it. Since Overwatch first came out, I always wished for a way to lower ability cooldowns. Kitsune Rush does it in such a cool way. And I think her healing is cool, her teleport, like her whole kit is cool. But she's really hard to play, and she's surprisingly annoying to play against, in my opinion. Like, diving her is such a pain. She can just teleport away to a mate, so she's even protected and works through walls, unlike Mercy's Guardian Angel. So you even have a hard time following her with like a Genji dash or a Tracer blink. Then she can just, with one ability, make herself and heal herself, which makes her even harder to kill. What I really hate about Kiriko is the primary fire huge headshot buff. The character's already hard to play and just getting instant 120 damage from a support is insanely hard for a diving DPS like Tracer. And combined with her invulnerability and her teleport, she's really a pain to dive. But she's still a lot of fun to play, and well, her ult is awesome, so I think solid B tier. And then we got Lucio. Lucio is just an insanely well-designed hero. It's similar to Zarya. He's very simple on a basis, like it's just switching between the speed boost and the healing and being able to amp it up. But his other ability, the boop, is like a great combination. His ult is awesome, very interesting, can be used in a myriad of different ways. Such an insanely well-designed hero. The wall ride is interesting. I love Lucio. Mercy is kind of a little bit of a weird case, and she's obviously not really doing any damage, but she's still great hero. I think she's very well designed just from the perspective of making it work in this game, similar to Reinhardt, that you don't actually really use a weapon. I mean, you can use the pistol, but it's really not Mercy's focus. You have great synergy with Pharah and Echo in the skies. I think that is awesome. And she's also a really good hero to get into the game if you never played a shooter before. I think she doesn't quite make it to S tier because of her lack of carry potential. I think if your team is bad, there's just nothing you can do with Mercy to fix that. I think every other support hero has a lot more carry potential than Mercy. And her ult is also a little boring, but still well-designed hero. Moira is my least favorite support hero from a design perspective. I think she doesn't bring too much to the table. Like, she has a lot of healing and quite some good damage potential, but no utility. And her shift is also such an insanely good escape tool that, especially for uncoordinated teams, it's really hard to kill her, considering a lot of heroes have a hard time 1v1ing her. Like with Winston, there's pretty much no way you can kill her without Primal Rage, since she just has so much self-healing. Yeah, I just think like every other support hero makes the games more interesting through like a lot of interesting interactions, while Moira just heals and does damage. She's not a terrible hero, but not a good one either. Sun, on the other hand, is pretty great. His healing and Discord Orb just tie in really well with his playstyle. He can use them between the shots really well. I think that's great. His kick is a great addition too with Overwatch 2 to defend himself and like add just some more flavor to the character. And yeah, it's a great character. He's not quite S tier because he's very damage focused and like doesn't do too much for his team. But what he does, especially the Discord Orb, is really interesting. Like if you're on higher lobbies where the teams have good coordination and communication, it's just so cool to follow up on those Discord Orbs. But I think in like lower lobbies, it's hard to get value of Zen like as a team. But yeah, still pretty great hero in my opinion. And I'd actually love to hear your opinions on all those heroes. I'm sure there are some controversial takes here, like Sombra and C tier. But yeah, I'd love to discuss your opinions in the comments. Until next time.